Welcome, everyone, to the Monday, February 12th, 2024 meeting of the Planning and Development Committee. We have a quorum, but I guess we take roll.
Councilmember Reed. Councilmember Harkaris.
Here.
Councilmember Revelle.
Here.
Councilmember Burns. Councilmember Wynn. Here. Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Nusma.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. And our first order of business is public comment, and everyone will have 2 minutes. We have a timer up here that will make a little noise after 2 minutes to let you know that it's time to wrap up. So first of all, Pamela Powell Rosenbusch.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Pamela Powell Rosenbusch. I have lived at 1914 Grant Street for over 48 years in an over 100-year-old Victorian farmhouse that was moved to its current location directly opposite the proposed development at 1917 Grant when Haven School was built. I'm an 80-year-old widow who lives alone with her dog. I believe this proposed development is wrong for Evanston, my neighbors, and me, because 12 proposed 600 space dwelling units are too many, too much density, too much traffic, too many cars, too much heavy usage of water, sewer, etc., and probably too much noise. The parking in front of my home on Grant Street will be gone when I want to stop back home to pick up something I forgot, or when I bring home the heavy dog food bag and push it in my red wagon that I keep on the front porch to my front steps and drag it up the 6 front steps, it's 6 back steps also, to my porch, and then bring it in. It's farther if I have to park in the back and can't park in the front. With the 12 houses, 15 parking spots will probably not be sufficient. If potential owners rent out their small dwelling units as verbos or Airbnbs, I guess they might. There will probably be more cars, or 2 cars per unit, or maybe 24 cars on the weekends. And that would be 9 cars that would have to park on the street that wouldn't fit into the 15 units. And the people that could park on the street would park on Grant Street or Brown Street, as that would be the easiest from that location. Current residents on the north side of Grant Street do not like to park off the gravel alley, which is behind this development. As in the winter, it is very difficult to traverse in bad conditions. Brown is already an obstacle course to drive down with parking on both sides of the street. So I thank you for listening, and I still think this would make too much density, and we should go with the zoning that's there now. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Gian Matthew Shelbert.
Hello, my name is Joe Matthias Shelbert, and I live at 1905 Grant Street. I work at Evanston Township High School, and I've lived in Evanston for over 50 years. I ask that you oppose this Grant Street project, as this development is not good for the city, its residents, or our neighborhood, and here's why. The project does not create affordable nor obtainable units for Evanston and does not fill the middle market demand that the developer claims it does. In 2023 in Evanston, the average price per square foot for closed homes was $312 per square foot. For attached homes like condos, it was $285 a square foot. Current listings are at $305 and $254, respectively. This data comes from the multiple listing service, not just reading. The development is asking for prices of between $360 and $380 for each unit, plus $10,000 for parking. At those prices, the price per square foot would be $600 to $650 per square foot, over double on what we average here in Evanston. So who could afford something like this? To qualify for a 30-year mortgage at a 7.5% rate, if you put 1% down, a buyer would have to have $16,000 in savings and earn over $91,000 a year. On the other end, if you were to put 20% down, someone would need $83,000 in savings and earn at least $76,000 a year to pay the mortgage of over $2,500. I've been in the mortgage industry since 1993, and I'm telling you, this is not affordable or obtainable middle market information. Now, how do these numbers fit into Evanston demographics? With the U.S. Census, the average income in Evanston is $93,000, but our white residents are 111, but our minorities are at $55,000. At $55,000 a year, these properties would have to sell for $187,000 in order to meet the financial requirements to buy something like this. So you are all represented for us, and I hope that you look at this project through the lens of our neighborhood, our community, and city of Evanston and their affordable housing. Other residents have additional points beyond what I stated, and they should all be considered. And if you do, I believe you have no choice but to deny this project and require that something be developed on these lots that meet the R3 zoning requirements as is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Stelios Valavanis.
Hello. I've lived in Evanston for 27 years. I'm an 1823 grant. I oppose this development as well. First of all, there is a process for requesting variances, and that includes the neighborhood's perspective, and that's why we're here. And if you ask us what we think, take notice. We're opposed. In addition to that, the variances that we have seen come through have been small things like moving an air conditioner unit inches this way and that way, not a complete redo of the zoning. Thirdly, the small houses are not designed for this purpose. The idea of the small affordable house supposedly is for odd-sized and tiny lots that have no other use. When you're talking about 500,000 times 2 lots here that are completely open, very deep, all kinds of wonderful things can be done there, that's really a misuse of the whole concept of the little house. There's lots of little tiny corner lots around the city that would be good uses for something like this where a house couldn't be built otherwise. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Garen Ferry.
Hello, everyone. Hi. My name is Garen Ferry. Thanks for letting me talk. I stand before you not just as a resident in close proximity to this proposed development site, but as a steward of the principles that make Evanston not only unique, but a model community. Firstly, I must express my concern regarding the alignment of the proposed development with Evanston's comprehensive plan. The spirit of the plan, as I understand it, is to encourage the utilization of special use permits to transform small and oddly shaped lots into viable housing opportunities. This vision fosters creative solutions for land previously considered unbuildable. The development in question, however, does not seem to fall into this category. Instead, it proposes the use of space that significantly deviates from what we as a community have outlined as the growth of our beloved city. The intensity and the scope of this project appear to stretch far beyond the intended purpose of the special use provision and risk setting a precedent that may not serve the community in the long-term interests. Secondly, the existing traffic patterns poses a significant concern. Grant Street serves as an alternative thoroughfare during closures of major roads like Gulf and McCormick. Additionally, Grant Street and the intersection of Grant and Prairie is already burdened by those avoiding the traffic light at McCormick and Green Bay, and experiences a substantial influx of vehicles during school drop-off and pickup times for Haven and Kingsley schools. The proposed development threatens to exacerbate this situation, bringing additional stress to an area that is already navigating a delicate balance between residential tranquility and a necessary thoroughfare function. Adding density in the form of multifamily dwellings without comprehensive plan to mitigate the increase in traffic feels contrary to the best interests of our neighborhood. Lastly, I would like to speak on the character of our tight-knit community. Our neighborhood thrives on connections between residents, those who invest in their homes, their streets, their neighbors. We aspire to welcome new owners who desire to be a part of this fabric, who value what it means to be a member of this community. The transient nature of the speculative investment does not align with the vision that we hold in our neighborhood and the commitment to living and making life here what we seek to nurture from this project. In conclusion, while change and development are inevitable parts of our city growth, I believe it is imperative for such progress remains true to the community's established plans and values. As such, I respectfully urge the the committee, you standing in front of me, to consider these points carefully and decide in the favor of maintaining the integrity of the Evanston Comprehensive Plan, ensuring the safety and character of our streets, fostering community spirit, and the long-term values of our residents and our engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Beebe next.
My name is Cynthia Beebe, and I live at 1915 Noy Street, and I've lived in my neighborhood for 30 years. Several weeks ago, our group of neighbors appeared before the Land Use Commission and made our case that the proposed development of then 13 tiny houses at 1917 Grant Street was not a good fit for our neighborhood. The Land Use Commission agreed with us and voted 4-1 to recommend an amended version of the proposed text amendment, which would require that any development of 2 or more tiny houses needs to go through the planning development process and not the special use process. We ask that you agree with the Land Use Commission and vote yes to their proposed amendment. Additionally, the Land Use Commission also recommended denial of the proposed special use permit for this development. And again, we ask that you agree with the Land Use Commission and deny the request for a special use permit for Blue Paint's proposed development. We have submitted a petition with 113 signatures from 84 households on this issue. No one has disagreed. No one has come up to us and said, I don't agree with you. One of the most important reasons to agree with the LUC is also the most obvious. The city of Evanston is currently undergoing a complete zoning review by HDR Architecture. Evanston is paying HDR $750,000 to update the city's zoning and comprehensive planning codes. Affordable housing is one of the major issues in the review, and we believe the issue of tiny houses and where they belong in Evanston should be considered as part of this ongoing review. Also, if this proposal is later resubmitted through the plan development process, the city can require that the developer is required to provide the city with a public benefit of some kind. One of the land use commissioners mentioned that requiring the developer to pay for the cost of paving the alley might be an appropriate public benefit. When the tiny house ordinance was passed by the city of October 21, the city memo said, since efficiency homes are intended for small or odd-shaped lots that are otherwise challenging to build on, and went on from there.
Yeah, can you wrap up, please?
Okay, yeah. Quickly, we ask that the city council should only make their decision after researching, studying, and discussing the permanent ramifications of this proposed development. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Polly.
Hi, Council. My name is Eric Polly. I live at 2000 Grant Street for the last 12 years. One of my personal issues with this proposed development is how the increased density is going to bring with it much increased vehicle parking. I do not think the proposal as written will adequately address the parking of multiple cars per household that this will bring to the block. Street parking will be the final and perhaps only solution for vehicle storage. Grant Street is already heavily trafficked at certain times of day, and it is a designated fire engine route through the neighborhood. Additionally, we've had sewer backups at our house 100 yards away due to overloaded stormwater from severe rain events. When we had some construction, all of our books and most of our belongings were put downstairs and destroyed during a flood. This is a known problem for the neighborhood, and I don't believe it has been adequately addressed in this proposal. One part of this that I, for one, would like to see addressed is how the increased density will affect stormwater runoff. A second part of this would be whether or not the alley would be paved, as would most likely be necessary to accommodate parking. Paving the alley would remove large amounts of permeable surface to absorb rainwater. I've had it with basement flooding, and I see this project as only making matters worse.
Thank you. Thank you. Mike Colhane.
I apologize. I signed up on the wrong list.
Oh.
Speak about the beach. May I continue or should I wait?
That'd be better for city council. Yeah, thank you. And Mike O'Mara.
Hello, Council. My name is Michael O'Mara. I'm not a resident of Evanston, but I come to this board with concerns of possible liability issues for both the city of Evanston as well as possible issues with the development itself. This development is being misrepresented as an original plan. The design for this project was originally for the city of Avondale, Arizona. The drawings that were presented and are being presented could possibly have copyright infringement as they belong to Lindroth Associates in Architectural out of Arizona. And I'm here to just inform the board to be cautious with going forward with the current design.
Thank you. Matt Bachoken.
Good evening. My name is Matt Bachochin.
Thank
I
you,
live at
sir.
1908 Grant Street. It's okay. You're hardly the only one. I live at 1908 Grant Street and have for 14 years. We're directly across the street and one lot over east of this development. The fictional character Gordon Gekko said it in the movie Wall Street. What is worth doing for money. So I do not begrudge the developer or his investors to make a few bucks or a few million bucks for that matter on this development. At the same time, I also acknowledge that this development would have an impact on the tax base in Evanston. However, both of those things belie the fundamental threshold question of what is this worth doing? And the answer is it is not. This development is a series of individual small homes built on a rectangular lot. Fancy shanties is how we call them in my house. This lot is the parking and the garbage is all accessible through a gravel, unpaved alley that's impassable at certain times of the year. And in order to make this development happen, it requires the modification and the misapplication of the existing standards and codes in Evanston, not to mention forgets the development of the comprehensive plan that is underway. It is already inconsistent with that, and that development is still underway. The only benefit that I recognize from this is whatever minimal impact it may be to the tax base and the removal of 2 curb cuts on Grant Street directly across from my house. The first time I even was completely unaware of the second curb cut until it was brought up at the last meeting here. This development is inconsistent with both the evolution and the current spirit of our neighborhood, and a better development is more prudent. I urge the panel to vote no. I stand here with every single one of my neighbors to speak in opposition of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Luz Garcia.
I'm sorry, but a little sip.
Okay.
Okay. You're supposed to tell them.
Could you speak closer to the microphone though, if you can?
Sorry, a little operation
Yeah.
a couple of days ago, and I'm here because I want to open a business in 6030 North Orrington, and I'm supposed to come in today for the next I don't know, appointment, something like this on visit. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, got it. Okay, yeah. Yep, okay, we understand.
Okay. And that's it.
So are you speaking in support or in opposition? She's the applicant. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, is that, I think that's it.
We have
Do we have somebody from online or?
This is one person who had signed up online. Olin Wilson Thomas.
Oh, okay. Olin Wilson Thomas, are you here? Or online?
He signed up online and said he'd be here in person. No, it's not related to
Okay. Okay. So then maybe, I think maybe now we're finished with public comment. All right. Okay, yeah, is anybody online who was wishing to give public comment? Oh, yeah.
Good evening. Good evening. My name's Vivian Killebrew. I'm the owner of Stepping Out on Faith Consignment Shop, downtown Evanston, at 1632 Orrington. I've been there for 14 years, and now they're putting a consignment shop right next door to me. And I thought there should have been some sort of notice, or there had to have been a certain amount of distance.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, there's a consignment shop coming up right next door to me. I don't understand.
Mm. So you didn't hear a notice from the Land Use Commission about their meeting?
They did have a sign on the door.
Okay.
I couldn't make it to that meeting, but I applied online. I hadn't heard anything back from anyone.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that item this evening, but it's not first on our agenda.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, somebody else?
Hi, good evening. I'm Kirsten Dorelio. I'm a 4th Ward resident, and I'm here tonight in opposition of item P3 on the agenda that was just spoken about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a regular customer of Vivian's store. It's been here as a faithful contributor to the Evanston economic scene for over 14 years. I'm wearing pants right now that I got there for work today. And Vivian is too humble to say this about herself, but she's been an incredible contributor to the charity landscape of Evanston. She has contributed to people who are re-entering the workforce by helping them with clothing. She has recently donated clothing to asylum seekers in our area. She has connections with Northwestern that she keeps up and contributes to the education of people in marketing and communications at Northwestern. She has a steady and loyal customer base, and she has also endured the COVID, the COVID pandemic and all of the impacts of that in the downtown area, as we well know. She has not seen a resurgence of her same sales revenues that she would ordinarily at this time of year. She's still down about 80%, she estimates. And to add to that, there's the lack of foot traffic because of the ongoing construction in the 1600 block of Orrington. So she's being impacted by that as well. And it seems to me very egregious, slap in the face if we were to put a competitor right next door to us. And I'm very sorry, because I know you're here right now, but it just doesn't seem equitable for someone who's been a long-standing contributor to the economic scene in this very troubled block to then put a competitor right there that she has to negotiate as well as sort of the third obstacle in a very short amount of time. So I hope that you'll consider all of these factors, and I urge you to vote no on P3.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Is that everybody? Whoops. Okay. Oh, okay, good. Yes, come on.
Hi. So I have a thing to speak about that's not on the agenda. Is that okay? I'll be a couple of minutes. Cool.
And is that for this planning committee? Okay.
It is. One moment. I am very cute. Thank you very much. There we are. City Council members, I'm a freshman at Evanston Township High School. My name is Olin Wilson Thomas. Since I'm unable to drive and since my parents aren't my full-time chauffeurs, I ride my bike or take public transit to most places in the city. I live in South Evanston, and once a week I ride my bike up to North Evanston to babysit. But getting there is challenging. There are no reliable bike paths connecting North Evanston to South Evanston, and I'm often forced to ride on busy roads with no protected bike lanes. I suspect that this is inhibiting many Evanstonians from biking, even when they might want to. Not all bikers are adrenaline junkies like myself, and many, including myself at times, feel unsafe riding next to busy roads for a majority of their commute. Bikers are also forced to ride on sidewalks or navigate through side streets. This can especially be challenging during winter when those streets and sidewalks are not cleared or salted as regularly as the busier roads throughout the city. Given all of these challenges, many choose the obvious choice: just drive. This lack of bicycle infrastructure prohibits many Evanstonians from enjoying health, social, and financial benefits that biking has to offer. So here's my plan to fix that. Build a bike lane on Ridge Avenue. I know this may sound crazy, but hear me out for a moment. First of all, Ridge Avenue is one of the most direct routes through the city. If we built a protected bike lane on Ridge, this would enable thousands of residents to conveniently and safely get where they need to go. No side street navigating. No, is that me?
Yeah.
How long do I have?
Everybody gets 2 minutes.
2? I thought it was 3. Oh, my bad.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Okay, well, we appreciate your comment, though. Thank you. Okay. And I believe, aren't we getting a bike lane on Chicago? Councilmember Wynn, maybe.
Yes, I did want to say to the young man who just spoke.
Oops, he's leaving.
That, oh dear.
Just a quick message for you.
I did want to tell you that we are getting a protected bike lane on Chicago Avenue from the Chicago border all the way to Davis Street. So there'll be a connection from one end of Evanston to the other end in a protected bike lane. It's not on Ridge, it's on Chicago Avenue.
And this might also be a good time to highlight something we're going to be talking about at City Council in a few minutes, the Envision Evanston plan. This is exactly the kind of thing that we need to be thinking about 5, 10, 20 years into the future. And the Envision Evanston plan is our opportunity to get input exactly like this and help us think about what we want to be moving forward. So I would encourage you to participate in that process and get some of your friends to join you. Thanks.
And I'll also add, I know Olin, he lives in my neighborhood. I see him walking the dog, so he should reach out to me and we can have a further discussion about this. Okay?
Great. Okay, thanks, everybody.
There's anyone online.
Yeah. So nobody online, I think. Whoops. So Sue Lowellbach. Sue, did you want to make a public comment?
Yes, but I can't unmute. Oh, hello. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hello? I can't be heard.
She's not talking about, but normally people are online, but I don't know who's running the online.
Yeah, well, I think we need to go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So that brings us to our items for consideration. Would there be a motion for P1, please?
Madam Chair, I will move item P1, which is Ordinance 19024, approving a text amendment amending regulations for efficiency homes.
Second.
Okay, and I believe we have a presentation from the applicant. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Are you going to go?
Yeah, I'm going to.
Why don't you go?
Okay, before Mr. Wallach gets started, good evening, council members. I'm Megan Jones, Neighborhood and Land Use Planner. Staff wanted to provide a little bit more clarification on what is proposed this evening for the text amendment. We have what was proposed by the applicant, which was an increase in the ground floor area from 500 to 600 feet and making more than one efficiency home on a zoning lot a special use process. Land Use Commission did review this amendment and they proposed their own amendments, which is what was their recommendation for approval. Their amendment did approve or did recommend approval of the increase in square footage. However, they added a section that made more than one efficiency home on a zoning lot a planned development process. So there are two different proposals that are in front of you today for this item.
Right. Okay. Great. Thanks, Megan.
I'm sorry, before we continue,
Sure.
could I just clarify that the draft in our packet includes
The Land Use Commission version.
The Land Use
Right.
The plan development.
So the ordinance that is in the packet, that is based off of Land Use Commission's recommendation. However, within the staff memorandum, that does provide what the applicant's proposal was.
All right, so if we wanted to adopt staff's recommendation, we would need to amend the
Right.
ordinance as
And
presented.
I think we have a version of that we could show on the screen.
Okay. Just want to be clear what we're looking at, what we're voting
Scott,
on.
I'm sorry. Anyway, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is David Wallach. I am a North Shore kid, grew up in West Wilmette, went to New Trier, and have lived here my entire life. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to work with the staff at the City of Evanston and council and aldermen in what is one of the more progressive zoning cities in the entire country. And it's an honor to be involved in those discussions. Our presentation today is on a project at 1915-17 Grand Street. The project seeks to address the need for missing middle housing in Evanston and is not an affordable housing project. The project consists of 12 two-bedroom efficiency homes constructed as a pocket neighborhood located at 1915 Grand Street. The combined lot's unusually large, 100 feet by 290. Unlike affordable housing seeks to address the least expensive housing, most often involving government subsidies, while this project seeks to address the need of missing middle housing market, which involves market rate product without the need for government subsidies at all. In my 28 years of development, I've never taken money from a government. We've always done market rate projects, and we have done that without substance from any municipality, and we're not changing our ways today. More than 94% of the people seeking to acquire a residence prefer single-family homes, yet today existing single-family home options are out of reach of most Americans. Focusing on missing middle market housing provides a solution to those seeking single-family home ownership. The current project reduces density of lot coverage in the neighborhood and brings down the cost of home ownership without government subsidies. The project is aligned with existing neighborhood conditions and, as articulated in the market study, is beneficial to the neighborhood. The project will decrease parking and traffic-related issues by eliminating 2 curb cuts on Grand Street and providing 15 parking spaces where none are otherwise required. The development will add housing built to high-end standards while affording a price point that will address the missing middle housing existing in Evanston. Because these homes will be market rate and financed using conventional financing terms, restrictions on rentals, no more than 2 for the project, will be permitted. Those are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines. The project's in keeping with Evanston's building of such housing throughout its history and targets the 85% of housing nationally without children and 30% of households with only 1 occupant. These smaller homes will be constructed to the same market standards as the $1 million plus homes that we've developed throughout the country. Blue Paint Development has developed more than $250 million of upscale, well-appointed urban and suburban projects in its history. Today, we continue that quality in projects using only energy-efficient envelopes, state-of-the-art mechanical systems, and durable, well-appointed finishes. The same material used in multi-million developments that we're doing will be used to construct this missing middle housing project. It'll also be consistent with the Climate Action Resilience Plan that Evanston has put forth. The energy efficient walls will have walls that are standards of R28 with roofs in excess of R49. You should be able to heat these with a blow dryer and cool them off with a bucket of ice. The Land Use Commission, we were before about a month ago, and they did vote 1-4 against the project due to the fact that in order to get a special use, they would need to find something within the ordinance in order to rely on. Because we had to increase the efficiency homes from 500 to 600 square feet, we didn't meet 4 of their standards. The reason that we had to go from 500 to 600 feet is because we've been working with the city of Evanston on their inclusionary housing. The biggest need that they have is for 2-bedroom units. We couldn't get 2-bedroom units in a 500 square foot unit, which is why we went through the process of raising it to 600. And that's about as small as you can get, and get 2 real bedrooms, a minimum 10 by 10 in order to meet the inclusionary housing ordinance. So we've done that through working with the city of Evanston. What is missing middle market housing? It refers to real estate that's between detached single-family residence and large multifamily complexes. Examples include duplexes, smaller condominiums, and so forth. Many communities across the United States are experiencing a housing shortage. And what's happening as we look at numbers here, it was brought up earlier on what those are. Attached, by the way, to our study is a study that was done in Asheville, North Carolina, which has phenomenal information, especially up front, related to this market. But what it shows is that for the mechanic, as an example here, in the neighborhood, making $60,000, really the only option that they have in a price point is to be in multifamily type of housing, 4-plex or greater. And even with that, they barely make the amount needed. A registered nurse, and that number making about $80,000, also would not qualify for anything more than the sales price of that. Only the chief executive of a company might be able to afford it. Evanston has the same problem as pointed out in the Asheville study. The average single-family home in this demographic, this ward, the ward that we're talking about, there's 5 homes on the market. The average price point is $1,120,000. The Asheville study was $1,168,000. So they're very close, right? And those are out of reach for the people living in Evanston. Yet they shouldn't have to sacrifice quality and a community, right? Just because they're not making as much money as a CEO. Pocket neighborhoods and cottage housing is part of your fabric. You've had cottage housing in Evanston for a long time. We're taking that down from multifamily cottage housing, which is multiple units in a building with a lot of buildings around it, just down to 1 single family home. 94% of the people buying real estate want to live in single family home environments, not with somebody above them or below them or next to them, right? And this is exactly the type of product that nationally is being adopted by municipalities in order to fulfill that need. We were asked by the Land Use Commission to provide an independent market study, which we did. And the 3 things that came out of that is that there's sufficient market demand for the subject development, and it'll fulfill the need for new middle market housing here. We did submit a pro forma. The market study came back and suggested that we sell the units for under $350,000. In listening, as we did with staff and as we did to the market study and the aldermen, we brought our prices here under $350,000. Again, despite earlier connotations, it's a 10% down payment mortgage that you're looking for these. Again, this is market rate. And anybody in those demographics that we looked at would be able to afford this. The mechanic, which is the lower end of that scale, one person making $60,000, they're at a little bit of the higher end of the mortgage rate, somewhere around 38.5%, but they would still qualify. Thirdly, the subject property will have a positive effect on the immediate neighborhood as well as the city of Evanston. After completion, the subject will consist of a new, well-designed pocket neighborhood. This type of development is occurring all over the country, providing much-needed middle market housing. These were the conclusions of the independent market study that we were asked to provide. Again, attached to that is an independent study that was just produced November of 2023 in Asheville, North Carolina. I recommend everybody reading it. It's a phenomenal study. And here are some of the images that we have for it. These are smart, 2-bedroom, energy-efficient units. Same quality, same type of product that we were building multi-million-dollar homes with, we're going to be using to build this. There's great common space with a fire pit in the middle of it. And then in the back corner out towards the alley, we have an enclosed area there for barbecue and people to sit and convene and enjoy. The models for this are presented in your package as well. Again, per the inclusionary housing requirements, we have 2 legitimate bedrooms. So it's not a bedroom and a closet. Those are a minimum of 10 by 10 bedrooms in each of the homes. I'll go forward very quickly through this. There's 4 statutory considerations that you all look at in making the determination on your text amendment. The first is that our project is consistent with the goals of Evanston. Again, we had to go from 500 to 600 square feet in order to get to the appropriate standard, so we meet that under the first requirement. The amendment is compatible, number 2, with the character of the existing development in the neighborhood. Now, Evanston did a great thing back, I think, in 1993, is you changed how you calculated your density, right? You didn't really look at FAR anymore. You're looking at lot coverage and bulk density to determine what you get. Because if you don't do it that way, you wind up with what we have next door, which is just below that arrow, are 5 condominium townhomes, whatever you want to call that take up the entire lot. Under today's land lot coverage, you couldn't build that. And that's lot to lot. That's immediately to our east. Immediately to the west, the townhouse project that's also almost lot line to lot line that we couldn't build. So what is it that we're building? Based upon the lot coverage that we're allowed here, our lot is 29,714 square feet. We're allowed to build 13,371. We're building approximately half of that lot coverage. The definition of density would be to exceed the amount that we're allowed to do. We are the antithesis of that. We're 50% of the lot coverage density that's allowed on this property. I want to get to density just one more thing, and the word gets thrown out an awful lot. We are basically, as of right, could build 4 townhomes, connected housing, which isn't as desirable, on each of these 2 lots, getting us 8. We could add an ADU to the back to get 9. Each one of those townhomes could have 4 bedrooms to it. 4 times 8 is 32. The ADU could have a 2-bedroom unit. That'd be 34 bedrooms. We have 24. So by definition of the word density, if you're just using it casually, we're a third less than we could otherwise build on this property. And if you use it the way that you intend to use it in your code, which is lot coverage density, we're about 50% of what we're allowed to build. The project will not have an adverse effect on values of adjacent properties. There are some that want us to build multi-million-dollar homes there. There's no doubt. And we could. And for those that think that we're rating and just making $1 million off of this project, I can tell you we'd be far better building 2,000,007 homes on those lots. We would make more money. We wouldn't solve the problem of middle market housing, but we would make more money, right? And the reason that people would want us to build that is so their single family homes, and they're scattered throughout the neighborhood, would then have an increased value. But that's not the standard by which you look at, right? Your standard is whether or not the project will have an adverse effect on their property, not whether or not we're going to help them increase the values of their property. We will, because it'll help the neighborhood and make the neighborhood better, but the argument's worth noting. And the very last part is there are adequate public facilities to service the project. We've heard different things about sewer and water. We've asked that multiple times. We've been advised by staff and council that there are no issues in the neighborhood regarding flooding. We've raised that multiple times. As it relates to the alley, if you go back and look at the alley, all the projects that are there seem to be able to traverse that back alley and park cars. There's 12 of them behind us off of Colfax. There's at any one time 5 to 8 of them that are directly next door with that project, and there's some in the back, I think, behind the townhome. So I'm not sure if that thing is, where it's going, but there doesn't seem to be an issue with people traversing that alleyway to park their cars. Again, I want to thank you for your time. I probably went over mine, and I am sorry. I tried to make it as short as possible. I'm not very good at that, and I'm here to take any of your questions.
Okay, so why don't you wait a minute and see, does anybody on the committee have any questions for Mr. Wallach? Councilmember Kelly.
Are there assessments?
There will be. They'll be very minor. We're talking about cutting the grass and shoveling the sidewalks, and that's it. It's really treated as more of a single family home. But the problem that you get into with being able to do this is you got to pigeonhole it, because zoning is written in a certain way that you've got to kind of work through it. So you have minimum lot for single family homes. So you can't be within that in order to give people fee simple. So the way to get them a house, 4 walls, nobody connected to it, is to do an overlay. Part of the overlay, there's going to be a little bit of electric. There's going to be a little bit of mowing the lawn and shoveling the snow. We expect that to be in the under $100 a month range as we get through it, but no more than that. There's no.
So the assessment would be under $100 a month?
We believe so. I mean, there's the components that we have to that is there's insurance that's needed for it, and then you've got some electrical and cutting the lawn and manicuring, and so we have a budget of about $100 a month. It may fluctuate, depending on what insurance quotes we get and so forth. But yeah.
Thank you. And I know you said you have space for 12 garbage cans.
Yeah. Well, so what we've said we've had a conversation with staff on this, and we don't really care how it gets done. We could either put a few big bins back there. We have an enclosure back there with a gate on it leading to the alley. The way there's some of that in the back there. We could either do it with individual bins, which we prefer, but we're open if they want us to have larger bins for everybody, a communal type of bins as opposed to individual. We don't, we have enough space there to accommodate either one. So we're allowing the staff and the city to dictate how they want that to be.
Okay. And what about like all the recycle bins?
Same way. There's plenty of room in
So
that.
that would be, if you did them individual, that would be like 24.
Yeah. It might be a combination of the two. I'm not in that type of garbage business. We know we've got enough space there to accommodate it. We're listening to staff as to how they want us to take care of it. However it is that staff wants us to take care of it, we'll take care of it.
Right. Because I've heard about the 12, but I just haven't heard any mention of the recycling. Then there's also like the green bins, the green lid bins for grass. And if people want to have those, I just haven't heard any mention. I've only heard of garbage.
We've had conversations with the city about that. And I'm forgetting the gentleman's name that we've, Brian Zimmerman. He's been great. And we said, however you want us, Brian, to handle it, let us know. We've got enough space there to take care of it. If we need to enlarge that a little bit, we have room in the back there to make it bigger, make it smaller. So we're ambivalent as to how that gets handled.
Okay. Thank you. That's all for now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember Newsma.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask about the energy efficiency a little bit. Appreciate that. I understand these are going to be all electric.
Yes, 100%,
buildings.
no gas. But none of the stuff we're building today has any
So they
gas
will
in it.
not have a natural gas connection.
They will not. Nowhere.
And you're able to achieve this through making a very energy efficient structure, well insulated, and well sealed. You're looking at air source heat pumps.
Yes, most likely VTACs, although we might do mini splits on it, but we have it designed with a VTAC up over where the bathroom is, and that just needs a direct vent, so there's no condenser on the outside. A better house starts with a better envelope, right? And unfortunately, the International Residential Code hasn't yet adopted the OSH rate, right? You got it in the International Building Code, you don't have the Residential Code. And the reason is because it's basically controlled by the wood industry, and they don't really care, right? Unfortunately. So, but we do. Right. So, by having a better insulated wall product, you start with a better envelope. So if you put Pink Panther in a wood house and it's R19, that insulation will sag and it'll work at about R9. Your mechanical engineers will then design for a house that's R9, right? Our foam in our wall does not degrade. So we're R28. It'll be R20.
These are traditional, stick-built construction with 2x8.
But it's actually light gauge instead of wood.
Okay.
Right. So it is traditionally framed. All the engineering is 100% traditionally framed.
It's not prefab or modular. You're making panels off-site and then.
Oh, it is. So what we do is we make either 2-foot or 4-foot panel off-site. Right. So the panel's off-site, delivered to the site, and it goes together very quickly. So we're working inside more quickly. We're not for weather delays and so forth. So we can get these things built quickly. And then once the envelope up, the guys are working on the inside. We did Willow Creek Church in Huntley, and the contractor for that will tell you that we saved them $750,000 using the walls in that, because the contractors could work inside wearing a long sleeve shirt in February. They had a space heater and that was it. So
it's all electric. That's good. No gas connections.
No, sir.
If we were a year or two down the road, I'd want to talk about a network geothermal, probably two.
Would I?
Yeah.
So would I.
So maybe the next one you come to us.
And it's coming. It's coming. You don't have enough of the trades out there. It's not specified. You wind up going to your contractor and it becomes a whole thing. You probably need more than 12, right? So if we had bigger space, and I'm not sure that we'd have enough room even on that site to do all that, but man, that's like cutting edge. That's
Yeah.
great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what about rooftop solar?
Yes, we're looking into it. We've got a lot, as you can see on the site, there are a lot of trees.
Mhm.
There are a lot of trees. So we're getting feedback as to whether or not that we have the propriety to do it on top of the roof. We're also talking about potentially covering the parking space, the rear of that, putting a panel up on top of the parking structure and doing solar on there. We're not there yet. So I can't represent that we're going to do it. I assure you, because of what we try to do, we're trying to do it.
Yeah. And you're talking about parking, EV charging in the parking lot?
Yeah.
How many?
Well, right now they were asked us to do one. The reality is once you bring one, you've already brought the electric to it. So for it to go from 1 to 15 isn't as big of a number as it is to get to the one.
Right. Well, in terms of the wiring, by the
wiring,
grid capacity and that.
Yeah, again, that's going to also, part of that gets back to the solar is how much can you generate for that. We've got to work with ComEd on what we've got there for it. But we'd like to, we're going to start out with 1 or 2 there and then hope to ramp up into it. Yeah.
And so you've done projects similar to this pocket neighborhood in other communities?
No.
This would be the first time.
Yeah, well, we've built homes all around the
Homes.
country. Yeah, we built homes all around the country. Single family homes, condominiums, townhomes, all throughout the country. The study that we have is a great study, and the reason that you don't get a lot, right, and it's coming now, is because zoning focuses on essentially 2 different things. You either have a single family home or you go to connected housing, right? And then beyond that, you're at apartment building style condominiums and things like that. And the price point in that difference is where that missing middle market is. Single family home, $1,120,000, right? On these. If these were townhouses, connected townhouses like we talked about when we had 32 bedrooms, right? Or 34 bedrooms, those would be $750,000, right? And then you got to jump from there under most zoning throughout the country to then multifamily, 8 units, 12 units, whatever. Huge gap.
Sounds like you're envisioning Evanston.
Well, and that's kind of the point is one of the things that they talk about in the study is to make the process, right, not so complicated. The reason that developers don't come and do this very often is because it's not as profitable and it's a pain in the ass, right? Those are the juice at times is not worth the squeeze. The reality is we've built a lot in our life. We've been fortunate. We've done a lot of development, right? We're committed to doing energy efficient stuff. I chair the Governmental Affairs Committee for the Home Builder Association in Chicago for the rewrite of the ordinance. I worked on affordable housing and attainable housing in Chicago since the late 90s. So it's not something we just woke up one day and did. But you need to have a body, right, that is a little bit forward thinking. And I wasn't just throwing smoke in there when I said at the beginning that Evanston is that. Your ADU ordinance, which we studied, is probably the best ADU ordinance in the country. It's phenomenal, right? So you guys have it going on, right? So it's a perfect place. And it's not a perfect place because it's untried. Like people get, well, where's it been done, right? We're talking about single family homes. Like you can't tell me that this is so crazy that somebody would want a 2-bedroom unit without anybody living next to them, under them, or over them.
Yeah. All right. You've answered my questions. I have, I want to leave time for other committee members. I have one question for staff. We have a fairly new structure for a shared housing regulation. Sarah, you know what I'm talking about. Would this development fall under that requirement for a shared housing operating agreement?
No, it would not. Shared housing is more when you have an existing structure and it's being occupied in some way that hasn't been, or is a different thing altogether.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Harakaris.
I just have a couple of questions. I know we have some community concerns about a couple of things. I just want you to clarify for everyone. So you touched upon it a little bit, the parking. I know anytime we have a development go up or potential development, people are very concerned about parking in the neighborhood. And so I saw it on the slide. You want to clarify 15 spots for the 12 homes?
Right. We're required under the ordinance to have 0, but we have 15 for 12. That's correct.
great. And then there also seem to be some community concerns about VRBO or Airbnb.
Yeah.
And so can you,
Absolutely.
And you said two units could be rented.
The guidelines, the guidelines in the industry, if you're to sell it and get a conventional mortgage that be traded on the secondary market, you have to have less than 20% of that project have non-live-in residents.
Okay.
So because this is a market rate project, that is the only type of thing that we would be allowing. So, you know, I'm not sure where the concern comes from, I guess, you know, but it's a market rate project. It'll be sold, the mortgages will be sold on the secondary market, and that requirement is satisfied. Yeah.
So we wouldn't foresee potentially the most that could be would be 3 units could be rented.
Yeah,
yeah. And then just clarification from staff. So then I know that any Airbnb type license with a owner that's not living on premises would have to come to us to be approved. But I think that would, for me, that would not be, I mean, the point of these small houses would not be to be a vacation rent.
Statistics, in terms of the market that we're looking at, and that'll probably answer that question even more. Statistically, the 2 largest demographics in this country are the baby boomers and the millennials. They make up in most communities roughly 50% of the community, and they're the ones that are having the most missing middle housing. So you have people that have lived in Evanston, that want to stay in Evanston, that have had a home in Evanston, but don't want to walk down a corridor. They're 60 years old, and they don't want to live in a building where they got to walk 300 feet down a corridor, right? They want their own 4 walls. Millennials are trying to find places to live. They've got student debt and so forth, and a job, and how do you make it work? And that's the overall. We're selling to people that want to live in your neighborhood. I mean, those are the people that are going to be buying this project.
Thank you.
Oh, and also we're removing 2 curb cuts off of Grant Street as well. So it relates to the parking. I've heard that, and thank you for reminding me. But there's still 2 curb cuts. So traffic patterns, people would be allowed to have that curb cut. So if we're worried about traffic on the street and coming in off of Grand Street, you would have 2 curb cuts on there. And if you were servicing, 8 townhomes and an ADU, you might have more traffic off of Grand Street, which most of the people don't want to have. We've eliminated those curb cuts.
Right. Oh, yeah, Councilmember Kelly.
So I'm hearing about guidelines and statistics regarding renting, but there's really no guarantee that, I mean, I'm not sure I understood. There's nothing to preclude them all being rentals. I mean, actually, right? I mean, you're just referencing sort of the guidelines and statistics.
Well, no, because it's a market rate thing, the overlay that we have on this will have restrictions that will be enforceable from the association.
And what are these? Yeah. So what, can you state those?
No more than 20% will be allowed to have non-owner occupied units.
That'll be
typical.
Okay.
It'll be in the, yes, it'll be a part of the decks and bylaws.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
for
you.
sure. Yeah.
So I
think
think
it's standard in condominium type of projects. You can't, somebody invests money and they buy a house, and then all of a sudden they can't sell it because of that rampant type of thing. You need to protect against it.
If I could just ask a clarifying question. So this, there'll be a neighborhood association, so to speak, with 12 members, 12 units each. Yeah. They pay dues to this association. The association would have bylaws. The bylaws would very explicitly limit the number of VRBO or rental properties.
Absolutely.
No more than
100%.
Okay. And that's it. Not even counting the additional layer of protection that this committee and council would offer in terms of having to approve VRBO or Airbnb licenses.
Yes. It would be antithetical for this project for somebody to come in and ask for a VRBO license for this project. There are a lot of other opportunities besides going out and buying 1 2-bedroom unit that would benefit people in the VRBO market. So, I don't think that we become a target. Second of all, they're not allowed to do it. And I'm not sure where people are missing that. I've been in this business 1 or 2 years. Every set of decks and bylaws, I'm a zoning lawyer by trade and written a bunch of decks and bylaws. They all have it in there. you know, when you're doing a market rate product, it's imperative that there be a clause in there that limits the amount of rental. It is dog bites man. Yeah.
Councilmember Kelly still has the floor. Sorry for interrupting.
Sorry, I'm done for now. I have some comments afterwards, but
Right,
in terms of questions.
So my colleagues have answered all my questions I had for you, but I did want to just ask staff to just confirm what exactly the property owner would be allowed to build there by right, and the parking requirement. Is there no? What are the parking requirements for that property?
Excuse me. So the parking requirements for efficiency homes, it's one parking space per efficiency home. However, if that particular property is within 1,500 feet of a transit station or a transit bus stop, then there is no parking requirement. And this just barely
transit-oriented development.
Right.
Wow.
Technically, yeah. So they technically do not need to have any parking, but we strongly recommended that they keep parking because inevitably there are people who will have a vehicle, even if it's an efficiency vehicle, electric vehicle, or something of that nature.
And then in terms of, you know, the townhomes or ADUs and things that could be built by right on the property, what could be done?
So he wasn't quite there. This particular lot is zoned R3, so that's 2-family residential. Each of these lots, keeping them as separate parcels, could have a 2-family home as well as a garage and an ADU. And given the building lot coverage is 45% and the impervious surface coverage is 60%, that could lead to some sizable buildings on each of those lots. Additionally, the maximum height is 35 feet or 2.5 stories, whichever is less. And for efficiency homes, which you typically we're not going to see a second story, that I believe is like 28 feet.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. So now I think we're ready for committee to discuss. So I think.
Is the neighborhood group allowed to rebut some of the inaccuracies that you're presenting because he's talking on our behalf?
No.
He's making claims that he thinks we're making them or not. So I would like you guys to give the Grand Street neighborhood an opportunity to defend the inaccuracies and proclamations on what we are asking and what we think is appropriate. And bottom line is, don't agree here.
Right. Well, I think what the committee is going to be evaluating is what the applicant is asking for and what the applicant is saying that he's going to do. Councilmember Kelly.
So I think if you're a group, right, I mean, they could have requested a certain amount of minutes also to present, and I realize that didn't happen, but if this were to go on to council, it would be for intro. So if it passed through intro, then at the next one they could request. Correct? I don't know if anybody gave you that guidance. Did staff or anybody let you all know how to do that? I see. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I think that's, that's the way that would work is I think with other groups that have opposed developments, they've, created a group and then requested a certain, usually 10 minutes, I think, for a presentation.
If they contact us ahead of time, they can have an opportunity, right? But as long as we're not contradicting factual statements that the applicant is making, I guess. I mean, because that's what we're going to be going on for our discussion, I think. Okay, so we're going to engage in committee discussion now, but we also need to clarify what is the ordinance that we're going to be discussing. Councilmember Kelly.
Yeah, so I mean, my understanding is that we are considering approving an ordinance that adopts the recommendation by the Land Use Commission. Unanimously, they voted to say that this should go through the PD process, which I support. They didn't vote per se against the concept. I think and I agree with them. I think it's something very interesting. I think these, pocket neighborhood concepts are something we should absolutely be looking into. But we should just do it right with due diligence through a PD process that has sufficient scrutiny so that the Land Use Commission can ask the questions they need to ask, have it brought back, modifications. It's much more robust. I think we owe that to the neighborhood at least to go through that process. So I think what we're voting on here is their recommendation to modify 6416, adding Part C that says that it would allow for, under the plan developments, except when authorized as a plan development approved pursuant 6-3-6 plan developments of this title, not more than one efficiency home shall be located in a zoning lot. So it would require a PD process, and I fully support that. Again, I think it's really interesting. I think this particular proposal could be improved, and I think we could see improvements if we allowed this to go through that process. We do have that mechanism in place. So I think that's in essence what we're voting on tonight is the Land Use Commission's recommendation. That's what's in the ordinance before us.
Right. And, staff has sent us in an email the alternative version, which would be what the applicant is requesting, that it be a special use process. Could I just go back to asking staff to clarify for us a little bit what would be involved in a plan development consideration of this proposal compared to what would be done with the special use? Are there more additional information from the applicant or additional standards, or what would be different?
So the biggest difference would be in what is submitted up front. So typically for a plan development, you will also get a market study, a traffic study, and a more detailed landscape plan. For the plan development within the application, the applicant also has to provide statements that speak to complying with city policies and plans, keeping in character with the neighborhood and things of that nature. The special use process, you can request those additional items if they're deemed necessary, but it's not necessarily going to be required up front. And also within the special use application, there are questions that are asked that speak to the similar items to the plan development. They very closely mirror what the standards for special uses are. So that's also going to be not causing undue traffic congestion, meeting the context of the neighborhood, and basically being created in accordance with the city's plans and policies.
Right. And now, after going through the Land Use Commission, et cetera, the applicant has provided the market study and a more elaborate landscaping plan and talked about some of these standards that you've just mentioned. Yeah. Councilmember Kelly.
Now, however, if it goes to the Land Use Commission, some of these were not presented to the Land Use Commission. The Land Use Commission with a PD can send back the proposal for modifications and clarifications. That's very different than it's very robust compared to, I could go through and read the application, what's requested in a PD compared to a special use, and it's more than twice the requirements. I just think this is a really interesting thing. We don't want to get this wrong, right? A pocket neighborhood, we should not be jamming this through. And again, a text amendment for one specific development, we're going to drastically change. This is R1, R2, R3, and R4 zoning as a special use because of this one gentleman's proposal. And I'm not saying we shouldn't consider it. Just like the Land Use Commission, I agree. Absolutely. We should be looking at pocket neighborhoods, pocket communities, great ideas. But let's do it right. Let's do it with due diligence. We have a mechanism. We have plan development. They voted unanimously, 5-0, that this should be brought forward as a plan development. They voted 4-1 that they were, against this particular one, but it doesn't mean it won't be revised. I think, good likelihood this will still be approved, but let's do it right. So that's, I would support what we are looking at in our packet, the ordinance that adopts the Land Use Commission's amendment to say that this should be reviewed as a plan development, which means it would go back to Land Use Commission as a plan development. Thank you.
Are you, Councilmember Newsom, I see you reaching there. Yeah.
Thank you. It's unfortunate timing, or it's just ill timing, in that this proposal is coming to us before we have had a chance to finish the re-envision, to really even start the re-envisioned Evanston process. But I would fully expect that at the end of Re-envision Evanston, when we are redoing our zoning code and our comprehensive plan very holistically, that pocket neighborhoods such as this will likely end up as special uses. Because pocket neighborhoods like this really speak to Evanston's stated priorities. They speak to our current city council goals, at least two of them. We've talked about climate action explicitly, and this also addresses our affordable housing need. Understanding that only a portion of these units are affordable themselves, but by filling in the missing middle, that adds more supply at a moderate price point, which takes some of the pressure off of properties that are the lower price point. So I am supportive of the staff's recommendation to amend the ordinance that's coming to us, if I'm following this correctly. So I will make a motion to adopt the changes which would bring this into agreement with what staff's recommendation is as a special use. Am I saying that sufficiently for everybody?
Yeah.
Councilmember Newsma, I just want to clarify that this is an applicant requested amendment to the zoning code. This isn't staff's recommendation.
Thank you for making that clarification. So let me just, can we approve the development without making this change?
The text amendment is dependent on the next item on your agenda. So if it is the desire of the Planning and Development Committee to amend the land use recommended ordinance that's in your packet to go with the applicant recommended amendment to the zoning code, then you could subsequently take a vote on the special use permit application.
Okay, so
if you do not vote yes on the text amendment, then the application for the special use cannot move forward because it would require a planned development application.
Right, and so why has it advanced so to this point in the process as special use?
Because the applicant did a concurrent application to change the review process from a planned development to a special use. Okay. So that's how it's gotten here.
All right. And so in either case, there is process.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And that process is very similar. The planned use process is a little bit more cumbersome.
Correct, as Megan outlined earlier.
Right. Okay.
So you're making a motion.
I'm making a motion to adopt the language that, I'm sorry. Let me clarify again here. This is confusing to me and probably to other people too. If we adopt the language that's in front of us without this amendment that I may or may not move on, what happens then? Or what can happen then?
So if the Planning and Development Committee does not amend the ordinance that's in your packet, then you should not be taking a vote on P2 this evening because the application is a different one than what has been proposed.
Understood.
So the appropriate item at this point would move an amendment to amend the ordinance to reflect the applicant's proposal.
Okay. So that I will move, and that is what staff has emailed us. Again, understanding this is not staff's recommendation, but staff
provided the wording for us so it's in our email. Is there? I'll second. We have a second. So is everybody? Councilmember Karakars, you found that all right? Councilmember Kelly.
So, Councilmember Newsma, so you're disregarding a 5-0 vote recommendation by the experts on our Land Use Commission to bring this back as a PD. Is that what I understand? That you want to disregard that recommendation of 5-0?
Yeah, I find that this development is consistent with the standards for amendment in 6345. And I can run through those if you want, but I appreciate what Land Use Commission is doing is they're calling balls and strikes as the rules are currently written. What we are allowed and in fact obligated to do when it comes to think more holistically, think big picture, and we know the Envision Evanston process is going to be very deeply diving into details such as this. And this is kind of a preview of what is, or at least may be likely to come in the future.
Okay, thank you.
So a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Okay, let's let them dive into those details. That's why we're spending, I don't know, $700,000 with a firm to do a comprehensive plan. Right now, if we vote on this, we are drastically changing our zoning without going through at least minimally the due diligence of plan development. This is reckless. I'm sorry, but we're not saying no to this. We're just saying let it go through the adequate scrutiny of the Land Use Commission as a plan development. And, I have to say also, I do want to address, I've heard the developer reference frequently, that he wants to address systemic inequities. Well, smaller doesn't lead to more attainable. And I can say that from my ward where we have, high rises with exorbitantly expensive little studios that only the very wealthy are living in. So smaller doesn't automatically equate to more attainable. And these are double the price per square foot in this neighborhood. He used that to say, won't bring your property rates down because these are really expensive. So which one is it? And so I just think this is really for this. And I do have concerns with design and much else about, with these. I think we could do much better with variation on material and everything else if this were allowed to proceed in a more diligent manner. I think we could end up with a much better process. Again, we're looking at product in the end. I think we're talking about risk management right now, and you're not. I think if you were to vote for this as a special use, you're not exercising the necessary risk management for our city. We might end up with our first pocket, community that we should be looking to that's might be a disaster just because we don't want to put it through the scrutiny of a plan development. So I support what's before us, the ordinance that's before us that incorporates the Land Use Commission's recommendation amendment, the one that's before us here. I can't support.
So one piece of input that we've not mentioned this evening when we were talking about the Land Use Commission was wishing to be able to consider this application after we had revised our zoning code and our comprehensive general plan. And I'm speaking from someone who served on the Affordable Housing Planning Task Force that met for a year or a year and a half prior to the pandemic. And we had a robust community engagement process where we talked to residents about what did they see as housing needs in the community and what did they see as housing solutions in the community. And we heard consistently for more smaller homes, smaller footprint, something that really set the stage for what I think we're seeing with this pocket neighborhood. So that's what gives me confidence that the ultimate new plan and new zoning code that are going to emerge from our current planning process is going to be, endorsing this kind of project. So that's why I can support moving forward with this as a special use. Councilmember Kelly.
Right. Again, and this requires far more analysis than we're able to give it, and we should be letting our Land Use Commission do that. Also, public benefit. I mean, we have, if it's a plan development, we can request certain public benefits and decide what is really appropriate. Maybe a paved alley is what we need, maybe not, but that's part of the plan development process. Also, that we're now depriving our community of that whole discussion. So I think that's about it. I think this is reckless. We're not even looking at the ramifications as to what this can mean, the unintended consequences of doing this as simply a special use. And I'm really disappointed if any of you do vote for this as a special use. Again, I think I love the idea. I've read about Ross Chapin. I've read his work. I've looked at communities. I think it's a very interesting idea to have these communities with shared stewardship and shared common grounds. I think this is a great idea, but I don't want to do it wrong the first one we do because we're not willing to spend the time on this because we want to rush it through for one developer. I think this is not the way to proceed on behalf. And besides, we've heard none of the residents want it. I mean, why would we do this? Thank you.
Staff, once again, another question. Could you talk about the public benefit aspect of a plan development? What because this, as a plan development, this proposal seems very different from the normal plan developments that we get, where the developer is asking for increased height and all kinds of variances and things. And then so in exchange, we ask for certain public benefits. So could you comment a little bit about how that works?
Sure. So you pretty much kind of hit it on the head. Mm-hmm. And also with plan developments, there typically is a more robust discussion about public benefits. And that typically comes because you have significantly more density, you have a lot more height, things of that nature. So to mitigate or offset the impact of those different site development allowances, we end up requesting some additional public benefits. We don't have a standard way of coming about those public benefits, so it can be a little bit more open with regards to that. But that is something that typically occurs with plan developments. With special uses, especially because we have so wide range of special uses, that's not going to be as robust a discussion, and it can be a lot more general in we need more of this type of thing in the neighborhood, or this is going to keep this type of resource or this type of housing in the neighborhood. So it's a little bit more broad and general when we're thinking with special uses for the most part.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
So again, this is like a subdivision. You're about to approve as a special use a subdivision. I mean, really that is in essence what this is. And, and we're basically just accommodating this one developer, changing our whole zoning code, removing the kind of scrutiny it deserves because of this one proposal. So for like I said, like a subdivision in this neighborhood. And I just think it's reckless. I think it can be done right. I think it could be done beautifully, but I think you are not going to provide that opportunity if you move forward with this as a special use. Thank you.
Okay. So seeing no more lights, I think we're ready to vote on what was the Law Department. Sorry.
Good evening, members of the Planning and Development Committee. Catherine Penrose, Lone Assistant City Attorney. I did not hear a second on that motion. Sorry. Pardon me.
Okay, great. Thanks. So we're ready for a roll call on the substitute amendment that would make this a special use process.
Councilmember Hadakaris.
Aye.
Councilmember Revelle.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns. I thought he was going to come online, but he didn't. Councilmember Wynn. Aye. Councilmember Kelly.
No.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Okay, so P1 has been approved as amended, and now we're ready for item P2. Would someone like to make a motion for item P2?
Madam Chair, I move Ordinance 18024, approving a special use rezoning relief for an efficiency home development at 1915 to 1917 Grant Street in the R3 two-family residential district.
Second.
Go ahead. Did you have a comment?
Yes, Chair Revelle. The motion was made to amend but there was no actual vote on the amended motion.
Oh.
I mean, the amended.
Yes. We have the main motion. Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay. So could we have a vote on the main motion?
Yes. Councilmember Hadakaris.
Aye.
Councilmember Revelle.
Aye.
Councilmember Wynn. Aye. Councilmember Kelly.
No.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Okay. Now I think we're ready for P2. And Councilmember Wynn, you just made the motion?
Yes, I just made the motion.
And I will second the motion on P2, which is Ordinance 18024.
Okay. So this is looking at this is a discussion about yes or no on the special use application for the actual project. So are there any comments, discussion from anyone? We've kind of had a lot of discussion already. Yeah, Councilmember Kelly.
So I'd like you to talk. This is a 600 square foot, smaller than even the developer. He said this is really too small, and it's going to be double the price per square foot. So I just want to say, for us to really buy into this idea that this is going to, meet the missing middle, the attainable, I'm sorry, I think you're all being misled. This is not going to be that.
Councilmember
And furthermore,
Kelly, I think
now we don't even have the option to improve it for the neighborhood because it's not a planned development. So, I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Councilmember Nusma.
Councilmember Kelly, I think you just said this was a great idea, but you had some questions about the process. So are you changing your mind and revising your opinion that this is not a great idea?
Oh, I think, yes, I think pocket communities are a great idea. I think they are, but I don't think this one's right. And I don't think we're scrutinizing it the way we should. This has never been done before. And now we're just putting it through as a special use in our community. I mean, this is a new concept. And in fact, we should be looking at developing an ordinance for pocket communities. Why wouldn't we do that? I mean, let's do our community right by doing things carefully. And that's what we're not doing here. And again, I challenge, I'm tired of all the talk about, addressing systemic inequities with this project. It reminds me of the high rise, the really expensive, studio apartments that barely anybody can afford except the wealthiest of Northwestern students. So to talk about this and to keep throwing that around, I think that's inappropriate. But I do love the idea of pocket communities, but I also like the idea of due diligence and doing things right.
Well, I do want to say to my residents here, Councilmember Heracars, you want to go first? Okay. Thank you very much for all your emails, and I have to say that I deliberated intensively all weekend long. Councilmember Kelly knows because we had numerous conversations. I appreciated your concerns, and, I really did spend a lot of time thinking about the pros and cons of this proposal. Strong factors for me. One was this really strong sustainability of the project. It's the all-electric buildings, the extensive amount of permeable surface. I think that's going to address the concerns that were raised possibly about basement flooding and such. I think it's really is a really good demonstration of what can be accomplished as we work to achieve our climate action plan. I do have to say that what I learned, what I heard from the community during that affordable housing plan steering committee process was also very prominent in my mind, because I did know that people were really saying we need, among many options, we do need more smaller homes, smaller footprint homes, and this seemed to me to match that input that I heard from the community. I do think I think for all of us probably in this room, picturing living in a 600 square foot home doesn't sound very comfortable, but it is something that will appeal to a certain demographic. There are probably younger people who really are committed to living more efficiently and sustainably in a smaller home with less possessions and fewer possessions. So I do think there's going to be a demographic for this. And I think it fits with the character of this block because you've got townhomes, you've got really a lot of multifamily. I think it will be very different. Obviously, it'll look really different, but I think it will fit into the character of the existing neighborhood. So those are why I am supportive. Councilmember Heracars.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Revelle. You said a lot of the things I would like to have said. I agree with a lot of your points. Also want to just point out that as we're moving forward and looking at our comprehensive plan, there are a lot of big shifts and changes we have to make to address our housing crisis, because it is a crisis. And even though this might look like a small 12 units, we need all the affordable or somewhat missing middle housing units possible. Like in this, this will probably be like 3 years at least before it's actually built. We are working from behind right now, and that's one of the reasons why I think we should move forward and have this project go forward.
Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you said a lot of what I would have said for my reasons for supporting this this proposal, but I want to run quickly through the standards for amendments that are captured in City Code Section 6345. So very quickly, the first one is consistency with the goals and objectives and policies of our comprehensive general plan. We're in the process or about to revise that, but I think very broadly speaking, this project does speak to some explicitly stated priorities of the City Council, namely housing and climate action. So in my reading, it meets that requirement. The next requirement is compatibility with the overall character of the neighborhood. And as you pointed out, there are several other multifamily buildings in this development. I think this will be this is not another townhome, not an apartment building, but having multiple families on these combined parcels of land is compatible with the neighborhood. The third standard is the effect on property values, and that there should not be an adverse effect. In my evaluation of the situation, there will not be an adverse effect. Those lots are currently vacant, or at least one of them is vacant, and there might not be as much positive impact on local property values if there were two McMansions being built on those lots. But this neighborhood is an example of a progressive, forward-thinking community kind of working at the vanguard of how to address a housing crisis. And I think that will set this neighborhood apart and make it more attractive to folks. So I find that the third requirement is met. And then the last question is the adequacy of public facilities and services. Staff has had adequate time to review this, and in terms of water and sewer services, if there was going to be a problem, it would have been identified by now, and it has not been. So running through those standards, I think this proposal does meet those standards. And as Councilmember Hedekade said, there's more of this to come. This is the first time through. First time is always more painful. And I understand and sympathize with some of the objections from the neighborhood as this being more something new and something different. But I am also thinking about not only the current residents of Evanston, but residents of Evanston that no longer live here because they can't, or future residents of Evanston who, the younger generation coming out of college that can't afford to buy their own place. So I'm thinking about not only current residents, but future residents as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you. I did want to offer my reasons. A lot of them have been touched on. In particular, Councilmember Harakaris is pointing out that we need to make significant changes. I've been on this council long enough so that the idea of having a carriage house apartment rented by someone who was not a member of the family was forbidden in Evanston, to the point that where we now have changed our ADU ordinance and recognize that actually greater density is the answer to a lot of our housing problems. And I look at this as very innovative. I don't see this as a disaster. I think that people who live in the 600 square foot house probably will find the one parking space sufficient if they even have a car. More and more I see in the third ward people who don't have cars because it's too inconvenient and they like being green. So I think the standards for the special use are appropriate for this pocket neighborhood, and I think that they have been met. Having a planned unit development, I agree with the concerns that having heard the PUDs many, many times, the allowances were always having to do with height, with a number of other variations. I don't find that to be similar to this. So I think this is an excellent idea, and we're probably going to have many more of them coming at us.
Okay. And Councilmember Kelly, did you want to say?
Yeah, I just, one last time, just want to make the comment that, that I think this would have been approved even as a planned development, but we'd be moving forward with proper oversight and doing this right. It really deeply concerns me that you don't want to rescind that oversight and even disregard a 5-0 vote by our Land Use Commission. It deeply concerns me that for some reason, I haven't heard a good rationale, even that one wasn't good reason not to have this go back and simply go through the process to ensure that we're dotting all our I's and crossing our T's and maybe even and probably coming back with, I would say, an improved development. So anyway, this deeply concerns me. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we're ready for a vote on item P2.
Councilmember Hardicartis?
Aye.
Councilmember Revelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen? Councilmember Kelly?
No.
Councilmember Nusma?
Okay.
4-1.
That item P2 will move on to council. Now, would someone like to move item P3?
Madam Chair, I'll move item P3, ordinance 24-024, special use for a resale establishment, JBS Thrift at 1603 Orrington.
And is there a second?
I'm sorry, 1630 Orrington.
Could I have a second, please? Second?
I'll second for discussion.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think maybe we need to ask staff. It sounded from the Land Use Commission that that Land Use Commission wasn't aware of the other resale shop next door.
That's correct.
So
I've spoken with commissioners. They were not apprised of that. It's not in the packet. I have the Land Use Commission packet here. There was no mention of Ms. Killebrew's store stepping out, but there was mention, I can read straight from the land use. The property is located in the middle of the downtown and is surrounded by a mixture of ground floor commercial uses, high-rise offices, and residential condo apartments. At least one other resale establishment exists within the downtown area, Crossroads Trading at 1730 Sherman Avenue. And I'd like to note that Ms. Killebrew's resale shop, this is 1630, the proposed resale establishment. Hers is 1632. The Land Use Commission was not made aware of that. So I would like to let them have the opportunity to assess this appropriately.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Councilmember Hardicartis?
I'm in agreement that this should be sent back to land use if they did not know that there was already another resale shop next door.
If I can interject, there was brief discussion about a resale shop being on the same block, being within very close proximity.
It's not in any of the documents. So there might have been discussion, someone might have missed it, but there's absolutely no mention that immediately next door is Ms. Killebrew's stepping out store, which is a resale shop. So you can't this is what we're looking at. This is what people study. So thank you. I appreciate my colleagues' agreement to let Land Use Commission revisit this with proper notice of Ms. Killebrew's store. And I also feel badly that her store wasn't mentioned. She's been here for 15 years. She's a local woman-owned minority Evanston resident, and wasn't even mentioned in either of the packets. So thank you.
Megan, do you want to comment some more?
Again, it was mentioned that there was a resale shop on the same block. And through that discussion, there was agreement in going through the standards that even though there was a similar shop in a very close distance, that's more of a market issue, and it'd be kind of similar to people going to particular stores because they have a particular type of product. And what is in one particular resale shop is not necessarily what's going to be in another resale shop. It's not like a big box store like a Target where you have the same products that are sold everywhere.
Right. So almost as though it would become a mecca for shopping for
I think
not a mecca.
They both sell clothes. They're both resale and clothes. So, I'm sorry, the competition, this needs to be reheard. May I motion to send this back to Land Use Commission and the only place that's mentioned is Crossroads on here. It's not.
That is strange. Councilmember Nusma, you have a comment?
If this needs to go back to committee, fine. I'm going to question the premise of the issue that we're discussing, and I think Councilmember Revelle, this is where you were going. I wonder if the whole is not greater than the sum of the parts. And, having multiple resale shops in one area would be good for the resale shop that's already there by adding some additional ones and drawing more customers in. And what you have at one store might not be available might not be what your customer wants, might not be available. So they go down the street, and vice versa. And so I wonder if it's better for everybody. I'm not suggesting we turn the entire block into a resale mecca, but I'm not convinced that having 2 resale shops on the same street would be bad for either one of them.
Would you like to make a comment?
I agree with you, but I've been there for 14 years. I'm not even mentioned. It's like I don't exist. At least give me enough respect to ask me my opinion. It's a woman-owned business. I understand. I'm all for it. But at least respect me. I've been here for 14 years. This is how much Evanston thinks of me? No one says anything. We're selling the same thing.
Yeah.
More is better, but at least give me the respect and let me know what's going on.
I mean, that's unfortunate, and I will apologize on behalf of the city that you weren't brought into this conversation earlier. But can we have the conversation now, or should we put this back to the committee?
Well, I'd like to move right now that this be sent back to Land Use Commission and a new memorandum drafted that informs them appropriately so they can make an informed vote and just have an informed discussion. It might very well, Jonathan, come back to us. Maybe that's what the direction we go, but they needed that information to be able to make a properly informed decision. So I'd like to move that we send this back to the Land Use Commission with a new memo.
Second. Okay. Councilmember Harakaris?
Oh, I was just going to add, when I read the packet and saw the address, I actually assumed it was Stepping Out on Faith was the store that was expanding. So
right, because it's the right next door.
Yeah, so that's.
I actually thought they had gone out of business because it was not mentioned in the packet that they were there.
Yeah, so I didn't until like JBS. So yeah, I would definitely support this going back and having.
And I would think that and it's not on you guys. I would almost think that Jim Nash would have said something. He's the landlord.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, so we have a motion before us to send this item back to the Land Use Commission. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Harakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Revelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Wynn? Aye. Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you all again. And then we have one more item, item P4. Could someone make a motion?
I'll move Ordinance 25024, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to modify the maximum allowed hours of operation for cannabis dispensaries.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay. So I trust we've all read the packet. Is there any discussion? I think we're ready to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Harakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Revelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Wynn?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
5-2.
Okay. And that concludes the business for the committee. And so we stand adjourned and, oh boy, council at 7:40. Okay.